Welcome back to Let's Talk Finances with Dr. Nina White. Last episode, we talked about the psychology of money, how your emotions, experiences, and patterns influence your financial decisions. And if you really sat with that conversation, you probably started to notice something. It's not always about what you spend. Sometimes it's about what you're feeling obligated to spend. And that's what we're talking about today. Because one of the biggest sources of financial stress, especially for high achievers, it is the inability to create financial boundaries. Saying yes when you want to say no, giving in when it stresses you too much, keeping up with expectations that don't align with your goals. So today, we're talking about how to create financial boundaries without guilt. So like I tell you every single week, get your pen and your paper, call your family and friends in the room, send a text message on, and let somebody know that we're on now. So let's get started. So let's be honest about something. For many people, money is tied to relationships, family, friends, social circles, even professional environments. So when money comes into play, emotions come with it. Let's talk about this. Having a client come into my office, right? Very successful, generous, loves to always help people. Kind of sound like me. But she came to me stressed out, right? Because every time she made financial decisions, something would come up, right? And you already know something always happens, right? When we're planning to do something else. A family request, a friend in need, a group trip she didn't want to miss. And she felt like she just couldn't say no. Not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't want to disappoint anyone. Have you ever had that feeling before? I know I have, many times. Here's another one. A professional who constantly upgrade their lifestyle, not because they want to, but because their circle expected it. How many times have you been in a situation when somebody is expecting you to do something? I literally just had a conversation with a client, and we were talking about that. Talking about how we're just, spending money unnecessarily. Somebody wants this. Family thinks that we got all of this money because we own our own business, but they don't realize we got expenses to take care of. But they don't see that. So because we want to make sure we don't let anyone down, we say, okay, or we give in, and we can't do that, right? So you're talking about dinners, vacations, events. They told me this. I feel like I have to keep up. But you don't have to. That pressure is so real. And it is very expensive. You can't do that. Hey, listen. Literally, just had a conversation with my daughter. She'll be a senior when she goes back to school in the fall. In college. I seemed like I just dropped her off. And I said to her, people thought I went all out for prom. You getting ready to cross that stage with your degree in hand from college. We're going all out. But I feel like I got to do that because that's my daughter, right? She did this. She worked hard. But that's not trying to keep up. That's just awarding her for her own achievements. But in a situation where we're talking about it, she's like, Mom, let's do a cruise. And I said, well, everybody not going to be able to come on a cruise. She said, and that's fine. So we can have a party on land and we can have a party on water. They can pick and choose which one they want to go to. I said, hey, sounds like a plan to me. But this is the thing. We don't want to just We want everyone to be, all together, but we still don't want to make anyone feel bad. And sometimes that's what happens in life, right? Let's break this down. Financial boundaries are hard because they challenge you. Expectations, identity, relationships. People worry, if I say no, will it affect how they see me? If I don't help, will I feel guilty? If I don't participate, will I be left out? So instead of leading financially, they accommodate emotionally. And over time, that creates stress. Remember, I talked about the good stress and the bad stress, and also about emotional, spending. And this is what happens in this situation. So we have to make sure that we understand what all is going on. We can't get emotionally caught up in a situation. Sometimes you have to say no. Learn to say no. We know the alphabet, put no in front of the letter A, right? No. Make sure you have to learn that word because we get caught up in our feelings. And you don't want to be left out. Somebody says, well, can you do this for me? Or I need help with that. And you say no. Then you're like, well, are they going to call me again? Are we going to, still communicate with each other? Because you feel like you don't want to let that person down. So we got to really think about that. So let's talk about something else. What happens when boundaries do not exist? Think about that for a moment. What happens when boundaries don't exist? When you don't set boundaries in place, what happens? Because this is so important, right? So first, you got your financial leakage. Money leaves your life without any intention. Not because you're irresponsible, but because you're responding to others, emotional, right? You're responding to someone else. The second thing, delayed goals. I've seen clients delay paying off debt, building savings, and investing consistently. Why? Because they did something that they should not have done emotionally, right? So now you was paying off all of your debt, you were saving your money, but now you can't do that because you've now spent, emotionally, giving it out because they were financially supporting others without any type of structure in place. That's the boundary piece. Generosity without boundaries becomes instability, right? Third, internal resentment. This one doesn't get talked about enough, okay? When people constantly give beyond their capacity, they start feeling drained. I can admit to that one. How many of you can admit to that? Can you actually take responsibility and accountability and say, yes, I've given, and I'm drained from giving, right? Not because it's wrong. It's not wrong. Not because it's unbalanced. It just creates tension, intentionally and sometimes in relationships, right? Fourth, loss of control. If your financial decisions are influenced by outside pressure, you're not fully in control. And financial leadership requires ownership. You have to be able to say, this is what I can do. This is what I can't do. And this is what aligns with my goals. Let me say that one more time. You gotta be able to say this. This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. And this is what aligns with my goals. Without that clarity, everything feels reactive. You're reacting all the time. Remember, we can't be emotionally caught up in everything. You can't do it. How do you create boundaries without any type of guilt? So let's talk about some solutions. Because boundaries don't mean cutting people off. You don't have to cut them off. It means creating structure around your decisions. You have to create that, right? So how do you do that? the first thing you want to do, get clear on your priorities. What's important to you? If you don't define your financial goals, everything will feel like an option. But when you know what you're saving for, what you're building towards, and what matters most, it becomes easier to protect it. Clarity reduces guilt. So I want y'all to sit in that for a moment. Because a lot of times we don't put our priorities first. We don't think about any of that. You don't realize what you've done until it's already done, right? And so now, what do? How do I, get back in front of the 8 ball? It's what I use. I love to shoot pool. So how do we get in front of the 8 ball? And so setting those boundaries, setting those structures in place, right? The second thing you want to decide is yes in advance, right? For example, I will support my family in emergencies, but not reoccurring expenses. You go and you help them, hey, I'm short on my rent. I'm short on my light bill. I'm short on my car payment. Whatever it is, these are reoccurring expenses. And every single time they come to you and say, hey, I'm short on my light bill. You say, well, didn't you just ask me for money last month because you were short on your light bill? So what are you doing with your money? So then you have to make that person become accountable for what they're doing. So you can't always continue to give and give and give because they're going to feel like, well, I asked them last month, I'll ask them then this month. And so that's where that structure and those boundaries come into play, right? I will budget for social events on a monthly basis and stick to that number. That one right there was hard for me, right? Because you want, and I tell people, again, I tell you everything that I do. So it's like you want to set a monthly budget for, miscellaneous or whatever. And sometimes it's hard to do, but you got to stick to that number, whatever that number is. And don't go over it or anything. Say, this is what it is. I make a budget for all of my finances every single month. And if I start to go over, then I got to reevaluate some things and see what I need to cut, maybe, right? Do I need this? Do I need that? Or is that just something I want? Y'all remember that 50-30-20 rule from last season? It falls right in place with that. And then the other thing is I will give, but within a defined amount. So somebody says, well, hey, I need $300. You could say, well, I can give you 100, maybe 150. You got to figure out how you're going to get the rest. And so that's where that comes into play, right? So when your yes is defined, your no becomes so much easier. Third, communicate simply and confidently. You don't need long explanations. You don't need to over-justify. Sometimes just keep it as simple as possible. That's not in my budget right now. Oh, I have learned that. I have learned that right there. That's not in my budget right now. It's not wisdom for me to do that at this moment. When I tell you when the light bulb went off for me, I want to definitely say the light bulb went off in 2025 for me. And I started to say, that's not my budget. I don't know. I can't help you. My no became capitalized. I said no, but it was lowercase. Now my no is capitalized. Nope, I can't do that. It's not in my budget. It's not wisdom for me to do that at this moment. I even do that when it's time, when I'm out looking in the mall, shopping or whatever. May see something I want. My birthday just passed. Want to see something I want. I'm like, I want that, but that ain't in my budget. I can't do that right now. So sometimes you got to say no to yourself, right? And then the other thing is I'm focusing on financial goals at this moment. See, when you start talking to people like this confidently, they'll start realizing like, hey, if they're doing this, maybe I need to rethink some things. And they might want to say, well, hey, can you show me how you're doing that, because evidently I'm doing something wrong, right? So they may ask you for that. So when you tell someone, yeah, I know you need some help, but right now I'm working on my own financial goals. They might say, tell me more, right? The other thing is I can't commit to that, but I appreciate you thinking about me, right? Prime example, I was invited to a graduation for one of my cousins. Yeah, and I told my mom about it, and we were like, oh, we would love to go. I appreciate you inviting me, but yeah, we're not going to be able to make it. It was in another state. It was during the week. So it kind of just really, it didn't fall into our schedule or anything. So thank you for thinking about me. I appreciate that. Family, hey, girls trip, guys trips, whatever it is. Thank you. I appreciate, you asking me if I wanted to go, if you're going out to eat. I appreciate that. But you want to be confident. So that's one thing that you can say. Clear, respectful, and final. I mean, that's just it, right? Fourth, remove emotion from the decision. This is where that CFO thinking comes in. Instead of reacting emotionally, you evaluate. Does this align with my current financial plan? If not, the answer is no. Not out of rejection, out of alignment. Remember I talked about that alignment? I'm telling you, everything just follows suit from one episode to the next. Go back, get on schedule. I'm telling you, we're just hitting it one thing to the next. Fifth, build generosity into your plan, right? That's important. If you want to give, put it in your plan, right? Quarterly, if that's what you want to do, monthly, weekly, but put it in your plan. Financial leadership doesn't mean that you stop giving, right? It means you give intentionally. When generosity is planned, it doesn't create stress. Thank God. It doesn't disrupt your goals. It doesn't create guilt. It feels aligned, right? It feels aligned. So listen, we're going to do one recap like I always do, right? So just going back about creating those boundaries, right? The first thing, just a reminder, get clear on your priorities. Be clear. Remember that what are we saving for? What are you building towards? And what matters most? That's that first one, right? Got to set those boundaries. Second, decide your yes in advance. When your yes is defined, your no becomes so much easier. Third, communicate simply and confidently, right? Clear, respectful, and final. Fourth, remove the emotion from the decision. Remember, we want to stay aligned. So it's not out of rejection, it's just out of alignment, right? And fifth, build that generosity into your plan. You can do it. And when you build it in, it now feels aligned. So listen, let me leave you with this. Boundaries are not being selfish. They're about being responsible. You cannot build stability while constantly overextending yourself. You cannot lead financially if every decision is influenced by pressure. And you cannot build wealth without protecting it. Financial leadership requires so much clarity. It requires confidence. And it requires the ability to say no when necessary. If you're ready to create structure around your finances and make decisions that truly align with your goals, Emmy Accountant is here to support you. Whether it's financial planning, budgeting, or building a clear financial strategy, we're here to help lead with confidence. So you already know. Call our office directly, 1-877-839-7778. Again, that number is 1-877-839-7778. Email us at contactus@mdaccounting.org. My QR code should be floating around here somewhere. Grab your phone. Go ahead and get that scan. Or you can text us at 844-436-2788. Again, that number is 844-436-2788. If you have a question that you want us to address on your next episode, send it in. I want to hear from you, okay? Send it in. Even if you're like enjoying the show, I would love to hear it. Send that in to me. I would be so thankful and everything. So again, I'm Dr. Nina White. Thank you so much for joining me with Let's Talk Finances. Remember to protect your peace, protect your finances, and lead your decisions. I'll see you next week.